All right, welcome back to the bench and jet scale models. Today, we're continuing with the amusing hobby 88mm Flak 41. And we're jumping right into step 7, where things start to look like an actual gun. So far, we've assembled the recoil slide, return cylinders, and barrel housing. Now it's time to add the signature angled recoil shield and start prepping the beast for its cradle and mount. Which brings us to step 7, which is the barrel shield assembly. Step 7 is where the forward barrel support and the large flared recoil shield get installed. You've got parts like G1, G15, G45, and G47 forming that angled plate at the front of the recoil housing. This shield isn't just for looks, it's the real thing. It helped protect the recoil assembly from dirt and battlefield debris and gave the whole gun that menacing silhouette. Okay, we're going to move on to step 8, installing the barrel from the rear. In this step, you'll insert the barrel from the rear, sliding it forward through the central recoil assembly. The long gun barrel is passed forward through the recuperator sleeves and slide rails, threading it through the front recoil shield that was added back in step 7. Make sure the barrel aligns cleanly with the internal guide slots as it slides forward. Watch the notches and lips inside the recoil housing to avoid forcing it. I got this part here a little crooked. It should be tilted a little bit and I can't get it apart. So it's going to look a little bit weird there. But I don't know. I'm not really liking this Amusing Hobby 41, but I'm going to finish it because you know what? You won't notice it. Anyways, I got to put these parts together now. I guess this is how it rotates a bit. This is a bit confusing. How does that go? All right, that goes like that. There. Okay. Step 9, installing the rear support brackets. Now that the barrel is in position, step 9 locks everything together by adding rear barrel braces and recoil block components. Parts A54, A55, A56, and A57 form the rear brackets and block housings. They brace the barrel inside the cradle and finish off the recoil slide housing. Yeah, you can see that's crooked. But I'm going to finish building it anyways, because from different angles you won't be able to notice that. The only way you'll notice it is looking straight overhead. But whatever. All right, we're going to move on to step 10. And we're going to take care of the cuciform here. Hopefully these parts aren't as bad. Step 10 is all about constructing the folding cuciform base, the foundational support platform for the Flak 41 gun. You're assembling the main X-frame structure using the large arms B15 and B8, which form the cross stabilizer arms. Each arm gets its support braces, B3 with B17, B4 with B16, forming box-style reinforcement for the folding outrigger legs. The C17 pivot blocks attached to each leg. These are what allow the outriggers to fold out or stay secured in transport/firing positions. The center ring is already present in B15. This is where the turntable and gun mount will eventually attach. Note the do not glue symbols. Some parts of this need to remain movable, likely to allow the outriggers to swing out later. In step 11, part A14 with two C16s attached to it mounts to the side of the cuciform arm and may represent a bracket for a sighting system or fire control linkage. As the electronic brain of the battery, the Commando Garat 40 calculated firing solutions. Its instructions traveled down the lines of the Übertragungsleitung 37 to each gun position. At the gun, the first point of contact was the Anschlusskasten, marked clearly with the term Übertragung, meaning transmission. This humble-looking black box wasn't a receiver, it was the nerve junction for the entire gun system. This is so bad in here. I'm just gonna go like this, smooth it out, and then I'll recut a little piece of plastic there. All right, next up we're going to add parts C11 and C10 to two sides of the cuciform, and just be aware of the orientation with those circles on the top part of B15. These parts are what hold the ground stakes C1 in place. There are 4 of those C1s, and they are hammered down through the outrigger arms and through the platform base plates to hold and secure the gun in place when it is on the ground. So make sure you have these like this. I mean, that's how I'm going, in that the parts are sort of orientated the same way. So here's C11. So parts C12 and C13 are the mounting lugs and clamp points that interface with the trailer bogies, front and rear wheel units. On the real Flak 41, these lugs would lock onto the trailer frame for towing. They're reinforced and typically held the cuciform tightly against the trailer's rails during road movement. All right, let's do a little test fit of the parts C1, which are the stakes that are pounded into the ground. I won't glue them now, I'll have to paint them separately and then add them after. I just want to make sure that the distances are correct. I just noticed that was a bit crooked there. Next up, I'm installing parts C8, which are the foot pads at the ends of the cuciform arms. These pads are critical for stabilizing the gun on the ground during firing. Each C8 part gets mounted underneath the cuciform's outer arms, one on each of the four ends. On the real Flak 41, these spade-style pads help spread out the weight of the gun and keep it from sinking into the soil, mud, or soft ground. They also had holes for inserting ground stakes to secure the gun under recoil. So what I'm doing here is just cutting off all the parts that are going to be needed in the following steps, putting this gun cradle together. First off, what we're going to put together is A16 and A15, and these will be glued to part B2, as well as the subassembly that we can see that is comprised of B10, A76, and A82. There's also a little box that sits on top of B10 that once it's mounted onto B2, you can add. In step 13, we're adding the front plate to B2, as well as constructing one of the seats required by the crew members. Ausgleiche Gehäuse. So this is a housing for the balancer or equilibrator. An equilibrator is a mechanical device, often spring-loaded or pneumatic, that helps balance the weight of the gun barrel, making it easier to elevate or depress the weapon without requiring excessive force. The Ausgleiche Gehäuse is the casing or housing that contains this system, often mounted alongside or beneath the barrel on field guns or anti-aircraft guns, like the 88mm Flak gun or the Flak 41. rolla, and it's typically used to redirect the path of a cable, chain, or belt. Commonly found in artillery elevation or transverse systems, in that they're guiding control cables. Lefetakasten zwei. These are the Lefestakasten zwei is usually a metal storage or mechanical compartment mounted to the gun carriage, possibly housing tools, mechanisms like elevation gears or balancing devices, spare parts or optics, power components. You'll often see a Lefetakasten 1 and 2 on opposite sides of the upper carriage or cradle of a gun. An Ausgleicher is most commonly an equilibrator, a mechanical device that balances the gun barrel so it can be easily raised or lowered. It counteracts the weight of the barrel, reducing strain on elevation gears and helping maintain stability. These compensators of the Flak 41 were mounted on the side of the barrel rather than underneath, as they had been on the 88mm Flak 18, 36, and 37. The Empfänger Zunsterstellung was part of the automated or semi-automatic fuse setting system for anti-aircraft shells. It receives signals electronically or mechanically from a Kommandogerät, which is a central fire director. It transmitted this data to the Senderstelle machine that adjusted the shell's fuse for time detonation. This was critical for time-fused high-explosive shells used in anti-aircraft guns to ensure they exploded near aircraft. It's funny, on this kit, there's no real placement indicators or any kind of keying for this part, so I basically just tried to center it, I guess, is what I came up with. So I guess I had that upside down. Sorry about that, Chief. Okay, where are we at here? That's not right. What the? So that's weird, because look at that space. It's supposed to be together. And like, I've done everything that I can according to the instructions, so I don't know why there's that space there. I guess what I can do is cut that and then move it in. That's just so weird. The automated fuse setting trays of the 88mm Flak 41. In the waning light of an air raid, a German 88mm Flak 41 anti-aircraft gun stands ready, its crew braced for action. This is no ordinary ACAC. It was an advanced evolution of the famed 88mm gun equipped with innovative fuse setting trays that revolutionized its operation. As searchlights stab the sky, the Flak 41's loading team moves with practiced choreography. A fresh shell is slipped into a waiting tray on the side of the gun, and the weapon's automated Sonderstellung mechanism springs to life. This is the fuse setting device. In mere seconds, the gun's mechanical brain dials in the correct fuse timing. The shell's nose-mounted time fuse is automatically adjusted to the precise fraction of a second, synchronized to the altitude and distance of the oncoming bomber formation. This feat is accomplished not by guesswork or manual cranking, but from electronic commands relayed from a central fire control director, the Commando Garat 40. Which is the command device. Together, the Flak 41 and its fuse setting trays form a masterpiece of wartime engineering, a melding of steel and circuitry that brought a new level of lethality to Germany's air defenses. With the design and operation of the fuse setting trays, the Flak 41 Sonderstellmaschine 41 Model 41 fuse setting machine, was a twin tray apparatus mounted on the gun's left side, purpose-built to automate the critical task of setting time fuses. Each tray, essentially a rotating holder or Stellbecker setting cup, could cradle a single 88mm shell. As one tray accepted a fresh round, its twin would be in the opposite position, engaged in the delicate work of adjusting the shell's time fuse. Upon placing a shell on the outward-facing tray, a loader pushes it into the Stellkopf, which is the setting head, where it is automatically locked in place by a spring latch. Instantly, the Sonderstellung sequence begins. The tray swings inward about 18 degrees, inserting the shell's nose into the machine's internal fuse setting mechanism. Deep within the gun's carriage, an electronic Empfänger receiver designated Empfänger C waits to receive firing data. This data arrives over the Übertragungsgerät 37, a wired system linking the director to each gun. In real time, the Kommandogerät's calculations, range, altitude, speed, are translated into a precise setting for the shell's clockwork fuse. The receiver drives the fuse setting motor in the Stellkopf, rotating the fuse's timing ring to the exact detonation interval required. No human hands turns the fuse. It is set remotely by the director's command. The same technology of director-controlled fuse setting later used in larger guns like the 12.8 centimeter Flak 40. Inside the tray, one can imagine the mechanical ballet. Gear teeth on the shell's nose fuse, engaged with the setter's drive mechanism, spinning the fuse's internals to, say, 27.5 seconds, the predicted time of flight to the target's altitude. The moment this automated adjustment is complete, a small Schatzzeichen, which is an indicator flag that the setting is done, and a sharp ring of Verglock, firing bell, cuts through the gun pit. Immediately, the locked tray releases. With a quick pull of a lever by the loader, the now armed shell is ejected from the setting cup. Almost simultaneously, The opposite tray, already reloaded with the next round, swings into position to repeat the cycle. The coordination is seamless. While one shell is being fired or chambered, the next shell's fuse is already being set in the adjacent tray. From there, the Flak 41's loading mechanism takes over. The Flak 41 was fitted with an automatic rammer powered by a spring motor called a Kraftsprecher, similar to the system adopted by the 12.8 centimeter heavy Flak. As the loader guides the readied shell into the breech, twin rubber-coated rollers engage the ram and ram the round into the firing position with a mechanical whir. The entire process, from dropping a shell into the tray to its fuse being set to the shell being slammed home, happens in just a few heartbeats. The gun's breech snaps shut, and if the crew has done their job and the target is in sight, the gun captain hits the electric trigger. With an earth-shattering crack, the 88mm projectile hurtles skyward, carrying with it the automatic arithmetic of the director's solution. The instant the shell leaves the barrel, the now empty tray swings outward again, ready to receive the next round. The cycle continues unbroken, an elegant dance of metal and fire directed by unseen calculus. This fuse setting tray system was not just a marvel of engineering, it had profound tactical significance. In earlier 88mm Flak models, setting a time fuse was a manual or semi-automatic affair. The Flak 18 and 36, for example, had a fuse setter on the carriage where the crewman could insert the shell's nose into a cup and align the fuse according to data fed by the central controller. The Flak 37 improved this with refined dials. The late war variants even moved the fuse setter onto the loading tray itself. These innovations sped up the process, but the Flak 41 took it to the next level by fully integrating fuse setting into an automated tray system linked to the director. The result was a drastic reduction in the delay between the target data calculation and shell preparation. Human error in fuse timing was virtually eliminated. No gunner squinting at a fuse scales in the dark, no last-second missetting. Each shell's Zunder fuse was set to explode at the right moment to fill the sky around an enemy aircraft with deadly shrapnel. By tying the fuse setter to the Commando Garat 40 central director, the Flak 41 ensured that its fire was not only rapid, but also coordinated and accurate. The director, operated by a dedicated team on the ground, continuously computed the target's speed, altitude, and heading, even accounting for climb or dive. These firing solutions, Verhaltwörter, were transmitted electronically to all guns in the battery. At each gun, pointers and receivers translated the data into elevation and azimuth angles for the crew to follow, and into an exact fuse timing for the shell in the tray. This meant a battery of 4 Flak 41s could all fire shells that would burst at virtually the same point in space, a pre-calculated lethal flak cloud into which the target would fly. The automation of fuse setting modernized anti-aircraft artillery, turning what used to be a manual gunnery drill into something closer to a mechanical firing line guided by an electronic brain. In cinematic terms, the Flak 41 battery was like a single organism. The Kommando der Garat was the brain and eyes, and each 88mm gun was an arm punching up into the sky on cue. Crucially, the fuse setting trays boosted the rate of fire and efficiency of the Flak 41. The older 88s could sustain about 15 to 20 rounds per minute in ideal conditions. Thanks to the Flak 41's improved semi-automatic loading and twin tray fuse setting, plus a higher capacity recoil mechanism and elongated barrel, its practical rate of fire climbed to 20 to 25 rounds per minute. Those extra seconds saved between shots could mean more shells in the air to meet fast-flying targets. Over the course of a bombing raid, a Flak 41 battery might fire dozens of more rounds than an older battery, simply because the process of fusing and loading each shell was streamlined and accelerated, and every shell carried the correct fuse delay. There was no need for a redo or pause due to a misset fuse. In the hellish calculus of air defense, this efficiency translated to a higher probability of hits. Veteran American bomber crews came to fear the distinctive black puffs of flak bursts at high altitudes. With the Flak 41, those bursts could be thicker and higher than ever before. The Flak 41's muzzle velocity was over 1,000 meters per second, enabling an effective sealing up to 15 kilometers, which could engage the latest high-flying threats. Though proximity fuses remained a dream for the German batteries, unlike the Allies, Germany never fielded radar VT fuses for its AA guns. The precision afforded by the Commander Garot guided time fuses was the next best thing. German time fuses, often the Thiel design, were reliable clockwork mechanisms, and when set by machine, they would detonate within a 0.1 second window of the predetermined time. This ensured that if the director's prediction was on target, the shell would burst in lethal range of the bomber. Conversely, a mistimed fuse, too short or too long, would harmlessly explode far from the target. The Flak 41's trays made mistiming almost non-existent under normal operation. Verteilerkasten is a German word that translates to distribution box or distribution cabinet in English. Depending on the context, it can mean different types of enclosures used to house electrical or communication connections. On a Flak 41, it served as a junction or interface box for routing electrical signals between the various fire control components such as rangefinders, Funkmessgerät, which are radar units, Zunderstellmaschine, fuse setting machines, the E-motors for elevation traverse, and the Empfänger receivers for transmission of aiming data. It ensured that the data like azimuth, elevation, fuse settings from external fire direction centers or optical radar equipment could be distributed to the correct subsystems on the gun, often as part of the semi-automated targeting system. So here's another one of those. Here's another one of those reels that will be used later. You can see there'll be parts that represent cables that sort of line up with these pulleys. The Flak Zielfernrohr 20E wasn't just a scope. It was a lens into the thinking of German artillery doctrine at a pivotal moment in the war. As Allied bombers grew more numerous and tanks more formidable, the German military faced the challenge of making their large caliber guns not just powerful but accurate and adaptable. This optic, the 20E, was part of the answer. Mounted on the right side of the Flak 41, the Flak Zielfernrohr 20E served as a direct fire telescope for both anti-aircraft and ground roles. In AA use, it was never intended to replace complex centralized fire control systems like the Kommandogerät 40, which calculated altitude, angle, speed, fuse timing, and aim-off angles. But in practical terms, those systems were heavy, fragile, and not always available, especially on mobile batteries or when the gun was suddenly called upon to fire without external support. This is where the 20E came into its own. In those chaotic moments, such as an unexpected strafing run, a low-flying aircraft diving through flak cover, or an advancing tank breaking through the lines, this optical sight allowed the crew to act fast. The gunner could sight visually, align the reticle, and fire, all without needing the full mechanical orchestra of cables, dials, and command posts. Its magnified optics provided the clarity and precision needed for short-range, high-speed engagement. Targets like fighter bombers or lightly armored vehicles didn't require predictive lead from a fire control computer. They required line-of-sight targeting and split-second reflexes. With the Flak Zielfernrohr, the gunner had a direct connection to the gun's line of fire. And as the war wore on, that kind of independent functionality became more important. Germany increasingly used its heavy flak guns, especially the Flak 18, 36, and later the Flak 41, in ground roles. On the Eastern Front, crews found themselves engaging not just aircraft, but waves of Soviet armor, often at long distances. In these cases, the Flak Zielfernrohr 20E became the gunner's best friend. A single well-placed round from its 88 could knock out a T-34 or KV-1, and the optic helped make that shot count. All right, next up, we're going to work on the traverse control box, or Getriebegehäuse. This unassuming steel box bolted to the side of the 88mm Flak 41 was one of the most critical components in bringing the gun to bear on its target. Known as the Getriebegehäuse, or gearbox housing, it formed the heart of the traverse aiming system, allowing the crew to rotate the massive gun smoothly and precisely. On either side of the gearbox are the Doppelhandrader, double hand wheels. These gave the traverse gunner control over the gun's horizontal movement, whether facing forward for direct fire or sitting sideways during anti-aircraft engagements. Turning either of these hand wheels rotated a complex gear train inside the housing, translating human muscle into controlled traverse across the gun's full 360-degree range. Mounted directly on the housing is the Kupplungshebel, or clutch lever. This small but vital control let the operator shift between multiple traverse speeds. In fast gear, the gun could be swung rapidly across large arcs to engage a new target. In fine gear, the same hand wheels allowed pinpoint adjustments, essential for aligning on distant aircraft or armor. With this lever, the Flak 41 could transition in seconds from a wide area search to a precise strike. Above the gearbox is the Empfanghanger, or Rohrhochhang, or elevation data receiver. Though this particular box was focused on elevation, A similar receiver was mounted on the traverse side. These pointer indicators showed the gunner exactly where to aim based on electrical signals received from the central fire control director. One pointer showed the director's command, the other showed the gun's current position. The crew would match the pointers, adjusting the hand wheels until both aligned. This method was called fuze Betrieb, or follow the pointer operation, and was the backbone of German heavy anti-aircraft coordination. Next to the receiver is another key component, the Fernsprechschaltkasten, or telephone connection box. This allowed direct voice communication with the battery's command post or fire control center. Orders could be relayed instantly, whether to shift fire, cease fire, or realign. It was one more way this gun was part of a larger coordinated system. Taken together, this single station gave the crew everything they needed: manual control, multi-speed gearing, electrical targeting cues, and real-time voice command. It turned a 10-ton artillery piece into a responsive, integrated weapon platform. And that wraps up part 2 of our deep dive into the Flak 41 from Amusing Hobby. I mean, just look at that gearbox. What a beauty, right? It's like the gun's own little brain and biceps all rolled into one. We've cranked the hand wheels, clicked the clutch, and peeked into some very cool mechanics. And if you're still here with me, then hey, you just leveled up your model knowledge. Coming up next, we'll be moving on to even more amazing details. But for now, take a breath, smile, maybe treat yourself to a cookie. You've earned it. So thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes life really is about which gear you're in. So stay sharp, stay curious, and as always, lucky you for loving this hobby. And in the meantime and in between time, that's another edition of Jet Scale Models. Y'all come back now, you hear? So I'm going to leave that off because it's got these dials. And I do have these ones that I'm going to see if I can replace, because they sure do look a lot better, don't you think? So we'll just leave that off. And I'm going to leave off these control things for now. And we're going to glue everything in place. And then we're going to start working on the mount for this. All right, so let's do that. How does that go? That goes up like that, and that goes like that. Shit, where does that... It's not really solid placement guide for this, unfortunately. Like, there really is actually no placement guide whatsoever. Just kind of have to figure it out on your own, I guess. And then this one will go there, like that, I guess. All right, so we've got two of these C30s, and they go right in there. This one at least has a couple of lines there that you can line everything up. Like that. And then we have this other smaller one, A58. Oh, just about dropped that one. I've already lost two pieces on this build so far. I hope they turn up. I've basically swept and reswept the place and still no luck finding it, so I don't know.